Did you happen to check the mailbox in the clerk's office on the way? Oh, okay. Okay.
You still have that back there?
This is updated
I did print that out.
vacant jobs. This is
I printed-
updated version because
Oh, even since you
guess
mailed
so.
since
it
this
to
morning,
us?
yeah, they hired 2 people this today that was on this list.
Okay.
Oh. Well, it's 5 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Should I go in the office and get everybody?
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock. Thank you, if you don't mind.
5 o'clock somewhere.
Here.
Song?
Schenectady.
The song? You need it. You need a drink. Updated one from early, the one I sent you today.
Oh, kind words, okay. This is not vibrate. I was here, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with
This is mine.
This is your stuff?
This is mine.
Okay.
This is yours. This is updated.
this. I don't know. What do I have to
I'd like to call to order the Schenectady City Council Committee meeting, committee meeting for, what is today, Wednesday? November 1st, 2023. Before we call the committee to order, Mr. Ruttier is going to be absent tonight, so Mr. Colden will explain to us the process.
Thank you. Obviously, Mr. Rivera is the chairperson of the Finance Committee. We have 2 members present from the Finance Committee. City Council follows Robert's Rules of Order. There's no provision about who, in our city code, about who would be the chair tonight in Mr. Rivera's absence as the chairman pro tempore. Therefore, within Robert's Rules, essentially if the regular chairperson is not here, some other member of the committee should call that committee to order, and then a chairman pro tem must be elected between the people who are in that committee, and it has to be done by majority vote, which means, because we only have 2 unanimously.
So at this point, I'd like to ask Mr. Williams to call the Finance Committee to order.
All right, so I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. Before us, we have a series of information impact.
The first order of business is that you have to elect a,
Pro tem.
yes, chair, between,
I don't care. Go ahead.
okay? We,
Do I also have to make a motion? Or-
Steve Holden.
All right. Gotcha. So before us, we have a number of documents that I'm just going to ask Mr. Ferrari to kind of give us a brief overview of, if you wouldn't mind.
No,
And then make sure everyone does have a copy of
I'm
that.
passing them out as we speak.
I had sent out to you, on your, in front of you, the vacant job list. This is actually as of 4 o'clock today. The difference is updated because the difference is,
Excuse me, can I interrupt you? You should already have that from Mr. Ferrari. Do you have this?
yes,
Patrick?
I gave it directly to her.
Okay,
This one.
Yep,
Okay.
the updated list. And there's 2 positions that were filled actually today, so that's why I did the updated list. The second, the other piece of paper we have is Mr. Muverick had requested the budget amounts for,
This is,
Fees for services.
can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. 2 of the pieces that John Rivera, Councilman John Rivera asked for was a fees for services of the original appropriation of 2023 compared to the 2024 proposed budget, and he wanted to see the percent change in regards to that. And for the general water, sewer, and golf funds, if you look at the general fund, you'll notice that the total fees for service throughout all departments is actually negative 4% decrease. The water is a 10% increase. The sewer fund is 0% increase in fees for services, and the golf fund is a 30% decrease. The other question John Moonver had was the management positions. He requested all the management positions within the city of Schenectady. He requested to see the 2023 adopted budget, the bills, the 2024 proposed bills, the proposed budget salaries, and the percent increase or decrease associated with each position within the city.
Okay.
So there's 3 pieces of paper that we just got.
Do you have everything?
3 pieces.
You have 3 sheets this size and 1 long one.
Oh, no, I have 2 this size and 1 this size.
It might be in.
No, that's what I already got.
Or you should have 3 this size.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quarter and
How I actually have 4.
You have everything back?
Yep. Actually, 3 this size and 1 this size.
Ready to see. All right, they should. I have one. You have that? All right.
So based on our conversation and how it was left last night, the premise was that we would evaluate current vacancies in addition to Mr. Mudavarian's suggestion of reviewing the fees for service and identifying some additional dollars to transfer to the overtime lines for the police and fire. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor to the council members. If they have any suggestions or recommendations based on that information. Ms. Lafferty.
So thank you. So I just, at the end of our last meeting, my understanding was we needed to get to the number of 777,000 in order to make that happen. And so based on what Mr. Moonver had requested, and just to be clear, we're not talking about management positions at all here. We're simply talking about vacancies and fees of service. Those items are what we're talking about. So, that was how we left it last night. And one of the agreements, my understanding is that Ms. Patrick wanted to make sure that we made our police and overtime lines whole. And we're trying to talk about how we get there by taking out some of the positions which we have gone through. We have the information in front of us that does not include the fringes. But it's, so they would calculate the fringes when we talk about that. I think that's probably it, but the mayor did have his hand up.
Oh, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to go over the budget process a little bit. And again, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to do. Start the budget process in May and June, where department heads have to start preparing the next year's budget, working with the finance department. They start to assemble what's happening within their department, what they'd like to do. Every line item in that budget is gone over 3 and 4 times before it goes into the final draft. Now, I've sat in all the positions that you hold. I think this is my 22nd budget. So I understand sometimes there's skepticism, sometimes you think department heads might be trying to pull something over on you. I will tell you that every line in that budget, I can support the assumptions that are made. Now, that does not mean that some of those things that we started in June or July, that they haven't changed now. And if the council's reviewing those and those assumptions are incorrect, things have changed where there might be better savings, there might be increased expenses, I would expect the council to take that into consideration in terms of your deliberations. But you came in here, you took $1.1 million out of public safety, wasn't happy with it, didn't quite understand the logic behind it. You've now gone through, again, I'll call it an interesting process. Now you're putting the $1.1 million in and are looking to remove other positions that I really feel are important, and I don't mind going through line by line. We have some of the department heads here to look at those in terms of what the expectations are if we fill those positions, what our goal is. And as we all know, recruitment now is somewhat of an issue. So it's finding people with the right skill set to bring in to the slot so that we can deliver the services people of the city need, want, and deserve. But just to gut those is a mistake. And it will hinder my ability and the department heads to manage the city and deliver the services that we need. And again, if you tell me what your end goal is, if you want to cut public safety, let me go back to the department heads and say, this is the number the council wants out of there, and we'll manage that. If you want to do stuff in Office of General Services, tell me what your dollar figure is, because you're not going through the line by line and having the department heads bring up the assumptions that we've used to come up with that dollar figure. So I want to work with you, but I don't want to go down a path here where you've shifted everything back, made one decision, shifting everything back, and now you're going to take another position, it seems to be what the trend is, that I really think would be an adverse state for the city and hinder my ability and the department heads to manage the city going forward.
Ms. Patrick?
I think that working on the budget is the most important responsibility of the city council. I think we all can agree on that. And I think that we certainly have done a lot of due diligence over the last several weeks. I actually wrote something up this afternoon. After spending the afternoon contemplating all that we've heard over these last few weeks from the mayor, our finance team, and our department heads, and all the answers they have provided to our questions, I believe they have presented a realistic, fair, and balanced budget. To continue reiterating the same points over and over is unnecessary. I've certainly been told that many times by my colleagues around this table over the last few weeks. However, I do want to say I'm not in favor of cutting into the reserve fund in a way that will jeopardize the city's fiscal health, as was presented to us by our fiscal advisor and our finance team. I believe that the increased water, sewer, and waste fees need to be implemented as presented. The decision last year to not implement what was requested worsened our situation this year and will continue to do so next year, as we were also told yesterday, if we don't put these requested fees into place. We've made some major investments in improving the water treatment facilities and constructing the new pump station, and we face increased costs. And finally, I think not fully funding what the fire and police chiefs have requested in overtime puts our residents' safety at risk, and I cannot support that, as I mentioned many times. Therefore, I'm recommending that we accept the mayor's budget, and I ask that the finance committee finalize their vote so we can move on with our business. Thank you.
And just for clarification, you're recanting your comments yesterday.
Yeah, I spent the afternoon really going back over everything as we discussed last night, that was what we needed to do today, and I really think that it is a fair budget as presented. And I'm not going to talk anymore, I don't think, tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Porter?
So in terms with regard to what the mayor had said, we thought we came to the table when we were going to put the 2.5 million into the sewer fund, but when we got to the table that night, we presented with information from you that is not something we could do. So we believed we were at a place where we were going to pass that budget. However, we were not able to do that. Then we heard from Ms. Patrick as well as from the fire department. We came back again and put some of the money back. So I just want to just state publicly that we have gotten to a place where we thought we could pass the budget, but there are those who agreed at some point, but now disagree that we should go back to originally. So even though last night I thought we were closer based on our conversation, but now I'm hearing that we're not, we should go straight back to the mayor's budget. We have heard from residents, at least I have, in terms of increase in the water and sewer fees. And there are those who are going to say, well, it's only this much a year. But with the median income in the city of Schenectady, we have a city that's like basically the haves and have-nots, so let's just put it out there. And there are people who called, emailed, text, said, this is going to impact me. So we have to listen to that. And so what are our other alternatives? We need to increase our revenue so that that becomes better. And then we need to look at places that maybe we can get more revenue that maybe we're not getting the best we can. So, so the bottom line probably is that we don't want to increase our fees for our residents. And we thought we were gonna be able to get there by taking out some of the positions. There are positions that have not been filled in years, and what happens is that when there's a shortfall someplace else, they take the money out of that. So it's not like there's anybody losing their job, just wanna be clear about that. Those positions aren't filled, haven't been filled. So that was why, or some of them were new positions that were being added to the budget. So it's not like anyone has lost their job or has been in the job for the last 3 years for most of them. So we're looking at that to get to that number of 777,000, where we could still put back all the money into the public safety budget, which was like a hard stop for some people. And having said that, it's those of us who are willing to have discussions and make agreements to get to that place. So that was a hard stop for other people, that was recognized, but we're also recognizing we're not trying to increase anything for our residents, whether it be taxes or sewer and water, and so we were trying to get there. Our original place, we thought we were there with 2.5 million. We're told we can't spend it, even though, I mean, if there's other places that have done that. I gave you the information last night, where, you know, it went up to circuit court and they said it was unconstitutional, they said that they couldn't do it. However, it hasn't happened in the state of New York, so I'm not willing to roll the dice on that. So, I'm still of the mindset that we, and initially we said no sewer and water, and then last night we said half of that. So again, yes.
Well, again, I don't think we all agreed on that. I think
No,
that
but
was just mentioned.
my point is initially, it was for Mr. Mudavera, that was a hard stop. He was like, absolutely none. Last night he left this table saying, I would go at 50% if we could actually, quite frankly, get you on board with it. And you said yes last night. So, but I see that, yeah.
I did spend a lot of time
I'm not
really
disputing
going
what
back
happened
over
today.
everything. I think that we just are nitpicking at some of the staff positions, for example, and trying to like put together from bits and pieces. It just doesn't make sense when we have in front of us a balanced budget. But I mean, I'd like to hear from other people.
Right, but I would say leaving last night, it made sense how to get this budget passed, and I was functioning with that understanding today of how to ensure that I met your ask, which changed at some point, and I respect it. However, I didn't find out till right now. Having heard from a number of different individuals that function within the city hall, there have been vacancies open for a consecutive amount of months, and in some instances, years. My understanding from my management background is, are we hindering applicants from coming forward, or are we knowingly just keeping these vacancies open with no intentions of ever hiring into them? And my understanding is we need to make sure that we are accurately utilizing every funding stream available before we increase taxes. So in looking at these and hearing from a number of individuals that are currently sitting here, to knowingly pass a budget that doesn't do any one step to increase opportunities to get individuals hired. We've talked about these vacancies and we are taking off the positions that are currently posted with the understanding of we cannot remove a position that is being openly advertised for. But to continue to fund positions with no intent or no concerted effort to bring people into this city hall, I can't support that. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, would you outline those positions that you're talking about, and I'll have department heads address them?
I think, allowing some of the other council members to speak before we transition that.
Personally, I would like to hear from department heads, as the mayor just suggested, on what positions that may have, and again, just coming out of COVID, all right, that's in the past, there was no one looking for a position, so you couldn't hire anyone. But anyway, I would like to definitely hear how you would run each of your departments without the proper personnel in it. That's what I would personally like to hear, Mr. Chair.
I I just wanted to add that all these positions, they are currently advertised and being up on the board, and we're always trying to get people in that. The only one is today, I think, the clerical aid for your department, I think, is not advertised.
She only resigned 2 days ago.
Right. The rest of them, you're always is up, and we're advertising to fill a position.
I guess my next comment would be, if these advertisements are continuously posted, do we do any auditing or assessments of the accuracy of those postings and do any changing in real time to adjust?
And some of these have been vacant since 2021, and maybe before, and I only say 2021 because the data sheet that we're giving only goes back to 2021. Maybe we should have gone back 5 years and see how long they've been open.
Mr. Mayor?
And again, we do the posting, we do the recruitment, we take referrals. All these positions are civil service. And we've seen since COVID, where they stopped giving tests, the easiest thing is when everything works right. There's a position, there are rules that we have to follow to hire, and they've taken a competitive test, we're given a list of names, and those people can be interviewed and then appointed to the position. Some of this now, we don't have valid lists. Sometimes they're running tests, which I don't quite understand some of the theory behind them, but it's frustrating so that people also sometimes don't want to take a position because they have some stability where they are. And if they take a position here, we have to tell them, this is a competitive civil service position. We're not quite sure when the test is going to be given. And it says sometimes we do, a lot of times we don't. But if we hire you, you have to score in the top 3 in order to be appointed on a permanent basis. And that hinders the ability to recruit someone because they don't want to give up some level of stability for something that's perceived to be more of a risky undertaking.
Mr. Furley?
So, excuse me, to your point, Mr. Mayor, I think that there are some things that are outside the realm of our control as far as recruitment goes. Well, not recruitment goes, but as far as, finding qualified candidates, especially in regards to the civil service process. So I guess my question then is, and I really welcome feedback from all council members and everyone here. So does that mean that if we realistically can't, are there some positions here that we have tried to fill, not due to any fault of our own, but just haven't been able to fill, that maybe we should look at removing in order to more efficiently spend that money? And I guess I should just tell that by saying.
Right, that may be a possibility.
I don't think that it's, I think we definitely want to move from the place of like either or and just kind of talk about where does it make sense? And if it makes sense, then let's go in that direction.
Mr. Bellamy, do you have any comments before I? So I'd say one of the main questions, and I always like to preface, being a new council member, I think that functioning in the veil of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to ask, but I think as long as you put forth a concerted effort of wanting to just get to the bottom line, I fielded a lot of questions with regards to the MEOs and just how this is a detrimental position for our community and truly bears a lot of the weight with respect to trash and also with upcoming snow removal. And as we beautify our parks, making sure that those areas stay consistently clean moving forward. Has there been any entertainment of conversations to specify these positions as opposed to putting out a broader ask of a general job announcement?
I have said that they should be posted with the position we would like to put them in. Some, I understand, they're still going out generically, where when you're in that title, you can work in different departments at different times. And in fact, that's part of the flexibility where employees are cross-trained so they can be moved where the workload is. And if you have specific questions, Mr. LaFond can address them.
If you wouldn't mind, Mr. LaFond, I think identifying your openness to specifying those job announcements, if it truly is from a standpoint of what is the efficacy of our generalized approach, and if that is not yielding any increase in applicants, what behooves us of transitioning our train of thought with recruitment?
Well, the MAO position, under its current job description, requires a CDL license. 90% of our equipment that the MEOs are driving is a dump truck, a salt spreader, a plow truck, or a packer. Under DOT rules and regulations, you have to hold and maintain a CDL, be licensed. So MEOs are going to be required to have a CDL license to come in. We'll be honest that, we've made an attempt to bring up some of the salaries to MEOs to make it more attractive this past year. Again, it's a recruitment. Somebody with a CDL license B can move into another position somewhere else and make more money. I've looked at the list. I've looked at where the vacancies are. It was made that there are 2 vacancies within one department that they are new requests. That was made after talking to my department heads. When we do a budget, I go over with my department heads and we look at the needs of the workforce that we need to maintain a quality level of service to the taxpayers of the city. Okay? But it's not known as the logistics during the days of the park that 2 MEOs will move into what we call groundskeepers. And they will take care of the ball fields, the soccer fields, the softball fields for the whole entire summer. That means my workforce for regular MEOs to do the other maintenance on islands and parks, which we have 31 parks, drops by 2. So the request was to request 2 more MEOs in the Parks Department to fill that void all summer long that we lose. The other, in the Street Department, what people have to realize is we have a workforce where most of our employees have been here 5 years or more. They get 4 weeks off vacation. You get 10 employees, they all take their 4 weeks for the year. I've lost 1 employee for 40 weeks, I've lost them for a whole year. So those 10 employees now I'm down to 9 for that year. Take the sick leave, take the personal leave, take the bereavement leave, take the family medical leave, take the workers' comp. Out of those 10 employees, I probably have 7 to work with. So there are vacancies because we'd like to get those filled because we never have a full workforce. There is somebody always out, whether it's, like I said, comp, vacation, personal, sick. They're entitled to those days, they take those days, but it's a loss of a body on the workforce. So, in the sense of the waste division, there's 8 MEOs. We utilize those MEOs to help with the season. We also have an agreement with the union to help train some of those employees so that if they do start as a seasonal and they're a good work ethic, they come to work, they move to a temporary position. They get a little bit of benefits, they get a little more pay, and then they work towards their CDL license. They get the permit, we give them drive time. We started a program where we'll have the CDL trainers in-house to train them so they can take the road test. And keeping some of those positions gives them the incentive to do that so they can be recommended to a full-time position with benefits and the extra salary for their families. If those positions are removed, what's the incentive for somebody to come here and try and grow?
But I'd say, to a point of clarity, does that request for the MEOs for waste and the MEOs for park, is that a generic 10 job vacancy announcement? Or does it specifically ask for 2 MEOs for sewer and then 2, or then 8?
Right now, it's pretty much generic because we move them around. And we can change that. But what happens is when you need people, on a good day, we don't need anybody in waste. On a bad day, we may have to go to another department and say, we need some people help in waste. We need some MEOs. If they're locked into that department and they say we don't have to go there, what do I do with the waste? How do I pick it up? I spent enough time on the back of the garbage truck, even as the commissioner, picking up the waste and the trash. So have my other department heads and managers within the departments. So we have to have some flexibility, okay, to move some employees around. Good example is we move them all around come December 4th. I put the memo out today. We all moved to third shift. We have a third shift that starts winter months for snow. It's 3 a.m. in the morning to 11. We ask for volunteers first, so that we try and get the volunteers that want to come on to third shift. And then if not, then it's by seniority within the classification. Classification in the union agreement is MEOs. That is their classification. This year we were fortunate. We had 9 volunteers take it, so nobody had to go on the night shift if they didn't want to. But again, we have parks employees going to the night shift beginning on Monday, the 4th of December, sewer division employees, and street department division. That is so we can keep the streets clear, get salt on the ground, starting early in the morning before traffic and rush hour starts. So MEOs are a vital position with the city. But again, we have to have some open positions because there has to be room for some of the employees that are growing within us, that we're training to have a position to move into. And we need them filled eventually because, like I said, with all the time off that an employee is given, we never have a full staff every day.
And I'd say based on that description, which I truly appreciate, what I'm hearing is there's a need for more staffing. So from the sounds, flexibility is not a luxury that we currently have because we just need the staff.
If I didn't need the staff, I wouldn't have requested it in the budget.
Like, I guess what I'm saying, the flexibility of being specific or being too generic, wanting to disperse staff throughout the needs of the departments, we just need staff.
We need staff.
So then again.
We have services we provide, whether it's snow, whether it's waste, whether it's cutting lawns, whether it's maintaining city-owned vacant properties, we need staff. And MEO is, because of the CDL, they are flexible in snow removal. Without a CDL, I can't put them in a dump truck. I can't put them in a packer. I can't put them in a salt spreader.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
No, I was just listening to what Mr. LaFawn was saying, and I think that the fact that he's cross-trained these employees, I appreciate that as far as the level of to be effective and maintain a certain level of service for the city. And I know that historically, when I've seen the mayor out at this place or that place, we're constantly talking up about, he's consistently saying trying to recruit people. So it becomes all of our unofficial title to recruit people. But to your point, Ms. LaFawn, we also are competing with area municipalities, and we have to keep some of those positions in place for someone that has a position to aspire to, right?
Right.
Okay. And do we have any of the positions that might not be, I guess for lack of a better term, some positions that are aspirational positions for guys that we could, that within your thought, that we could remove in order to use that money more effectively, or just based on your wealth of knowledge and experience that that's just not the case?
I guess
Part of my voice, it's not COVID, by the way.
The goal is to, the employee starts, it's a seasonal, it's more of an entry-level position.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are very content being a seasonal. They don't wanna move up to obtain their license.
Yeah.
But we still need a labor force.
Right.
We still need some people in the back of that truck to help us load out trash, or blow leaves, or help with the tree pruning and picking up trees. There's still a labor force.
Right.
And I did request, in the budget, there is a request, there's some people in there as labor loaders, to really bring some people on board that don't have the aspiration to move up, but I need some good labor force people, okay? And they deserve the benefits. But we're working with a very slim workforce. We've been doing it for years. And we've been trying for years to bring that workforce up. But you always have to have a few open vacant positions, to bring that person that started at the bottom, who's gone through that training and obtained his license, to give him, a home in the city, hopefully make it a career here. If you filled every position, you gotta wait for somebody to retire and hire somebody.
Mr.
So, not counting the proposed fills for 2024, how many vacancies do you have?
For any others?
Yes.
You have the list. I believe there is 8 in the waste department, 3 in the Bureau of Service, and 2 in the Parks Department.
These include 2024? Yeah. I wanted to know what you have in just 23. This includes 24 as well.
The only difference would be the 2 in parks. Yep.
So you have 6 vacancies right now?
8 and 3, 11.
You have 11 vacancies.
I don't have it in front of me.
No,
I
I
have-
have
Oh, no, it's like.
Right.
But you have to understand that some of those vacancies within the waste department are providing the funding for the seasonals who are working as the laborers. If you look at the actual year-to-date expenses, I think Anthony can tell you is, that money is being used, but it's being used to fund the seasonal employees.
Oh,
Now, didn't you just, I was told that seasonals just recently got laid off, you let the seasonals go?
We always have a workforce of seasonals. The seasonals are here for 6 months, okay? Some of the seasonals, we keep a number of seasonals on in the waste department because they're working on the back of the trash trucks. Because currently they don't have a CDL license. And as I stated, if they come in as a seasonal, and they don't wanna work towards their license, we will give them, they get their permit, we will give them the drive time, we will give them the opportunity to take the road test. If they pass it, a recommendation would be made to make them a permanent MEO, because now they meet the qualifications of an MEO because they have a Class B license. But if the vacancy doesn't exist, they're not gonna get to the MEO position.
Some of these positions have been long-term, like, is that correct? Have been vacant long-term?
Some probably in the waste division has been long-term. There's 2 positions in ARPA. They're there. Again, it goes to recruitment. You have to have a CDL if you want to fill an MEO position. And right now, we go out to the board, the advertisement is there. We did hire one last week. So we are constantly looking and constantly trying to fill those positions. It's not there just to take up funding. There are positions that are needed. If I could fill them all, I'd be grateful.
Mr. Mayor?
In that, using it to do the per diem. If you wanted to lead an MEO and move the money over to per diem, we could do that. The reality is the goal is to try and hire the MEO with the CDL so that they're a greater value employee. If we don't have that, then we still staff with people who don't have the certification, and we're trying to create an incentivized program that we made some modifications with the collective bargaining agreement to map out a clear path so that when people come in, they understand that there's an opportunity in front of them, but they have to meet certain things, and we want to work with them to get the permit, let them take the test, and have the CDL license. And hopefully when they have it, is that they will stay here. Because in today's market, our pay scale is on the lower end of the pay range. The benefit package, the total package we give is very good, but when you have younger employees, they tend to just look at what's in their paycheck and not the health insurance, not the retirement, not some of the other benefits that are really a great component of the city's overall package.
Which is my point directly, where the desire is to bring in this well-experienced staff member year 1. Does that desire evolve if that vacancy remains such, if not increasing into year 2, year 3, year 4? Where, case in point, and truly, I think this is another reflection of why our city is called the Electric City. Our Chief Marino, and instituting the EMT program, I think that is a truly adaptive concept to trying to get ahead of retention and recruitment issues. And I think replicating that in other facets of our local government is going to be one of the approaches to, similar to the law office, where if we can't bring in assistant corporation counsels, how do we make use of light industrial workload? Let's potentially bring in some paralegals and not reduce those assistant corporation counsels to 0, because Mr. Colden would still like to have another well-experienced or specialized individual. But truly, if that vacancy extends 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I think it is prudent upon us to evaluate how effective are our job announcements. Which goes back to, if I like parks, I like parks, and I understand the mission or the intent of the department to use those more as a transient workforce that you can accommodate some needs globally in our city. But I imagine, Ms. LaFawn, you would take any MEO if they were present. So would you be open to having a specialized job announcement?
Meaning you're hired for the parks and it's for each day?
To get a person in the door, yes.
An MEO is an MEO, as long as he has a CDL license, they gotta be able to plow snow and salt. My biggest thing, if you look where the most vacancies are in the waste or in the street department, the Parks Department MEOs were a request for this coming year for 24. There were no openings in the past years, okay? So that was to help increase the labor force, just because of the amount of work we have in the parks, new pool coming online, we just need the workforce. The other is the street department. And the street department does work with the sewer department in the winter months for plowing snow. We all know what happens when we don't get the streets plowed in the city of Schenectady. We all get the phone calls. Eventually, they all come back to me. Okay? But when they have a workforce out there and 3 drivers down, snow comes in, we request overtime. If they want to come in for the overtime, they come in. If they don't, they stay home. Guys will come in and drive for an additional 5 hours or so, 6 hours, they get tired driving that truck. If I don't have additional MEOs to replace them in the seat, that truck sits in the yard, and some of these streets aren't getting done. I need a workforce. I need MEOs to be able to drive, salt, do the things we need them to do. Budget that I put forth to the mayor is a request for the staff that I feel is needed to do the job we do. It's your decision whether or not to accept it, change it, cut it. The number of fills I gave you is what I feel is needed.
But it's also based on the number of applicants we receive.
Constantly trying, yes. There's vacancies all around the city. We try consistently to fill them
Understand?
because we have needs.
So I know that was one department specifically. Were there any other areas? I appreciate Ms. Patrick's comments. Asked the collective council to come back with some recommendations. I think with respect, I'm going to open the floor.
No, it's department heads.
So I think at this present time, I'm truly trying not to speak for Mr. Mudavarian. I know he was highlighting the fees for service
Right.
as an intentional line.
So again, we were trying to get to 777,000. Mr. Mudavarian, he was considering looking at the fees for services, how much we spent year to date, and a possible reduction in those fees for services to get to that number. I don't know if we're just like spinning our wheels here, since we know that Ms. Patrick would not be on board with any changes.
But it's really the finance committee that has to pass the budget out of the finance committee, so I don't have a vote there anyway. I was just making a statement, so encouraging us to move forward, because we've, been going line by line through everything now for some time.
Was your hand raised?
No.
No. I would say even if it was conceivably possible, I don't think me and Mr. Palomini would get to an agreement at this juncture. Truly, I spent my day today trying to understand how to get closer to your ask. So hearing that today, then my whole framework of interacting in this conversation shifts dramatically.
So we have to, we have to get a budget passed out of the finance committee in order for us to move forward. So you haven't really stated your position, but if you,
My position's been clear from day one. I will not support anything that builds a structural deficit into the budget. That's what's happening here. I will not support that. And I'm also a little confused because, you know, we've been hearing for the past year and a half, 2 years, we have to fill the positions, we have to fill the positions. Now, all of a sudden, we don't want to fill positions. And this is a sustainable plan to create the workforce that's necessary to get the job done that the citizens expect. I'm not supporting anything that puts a deficit into the budget.
okay. So just to be clear, yes, we have said we need to fill the position, but it hasn't happened. It's not up to the council to fill positions. We can make recommendations, some of us have. Some of those people have been hired, some of those people have not. So it's not up to us. So yes, we have been advocating, but they haven't been filled. So right now, we're facing the reality that they haven't been filled for multiple years. And so if it comes to the point where they need to be, we could definitely revisit it, but right now it hasn't happened. So it's not something we're making up, it's sitting right in front of you, the facts.
And all it does is create a structural deficit into the budget.
So how do you propose that we not have a fee increase, that we consider our taxpayers who are reaching out to us?
We have to have a fee increase if we don't want a deficit built in. That's just the facts. We all approved the water, the pump station.
Mm-hmm.
That's $1 million payment a year. It's gotta come from somewhere. And unfortunately, none of us wants to raise fees or taxes. None of us, I'm assuming. But I think I'm pretty safe in that assumption. But the fact is the fact. We have a situation where if we do anything else, we've created a structural deficit, and it's only gonna make the problem worse 1, 2, 3 years down the road.
Unless we look at some very strong ways of increasing our revenue.
And we say that every year, to
And
your point, and we get nowhere.
That's right. So then we have to make it a point that we do that. Because we can't consistently say to taxpayers, you have to do more and more and more in terms of footing our bill. When I'm gonna say collectively, because we are the legislative body, I understand the mayor's the administrative body, are not doing anything to increase the revenue, so we need to really make a concerted effort to do that. Because I'm hearing from taxpayers all the time. And I understand that some people I hear from somebody, I was talking to someone, and they said, well, I was talking to people that they were like, or a person, they were like, oh, that's not a big deal. And I say, I understand that, but I'm speaking to people, for them it is a big deal. So we have to consider everyone. So we came to the table, okay, it's not a big deal for you, it's a big deal for you, let's meet halfway in the middle and say, well, we'll do 50%. Now I'm understanding that, nope, that's not even good enough. So, we have to do what's best to balance the budget. We also have to look out for our taxpayers, and for some of us, maybe it's a small amount, but for some other people, it's significant. So we have to take that in consideration. And if we talk about vacancies again, they've been multiple year vacancies, so. Not cutting any positions or not getting anybody out of a job that's currently in a job, just wanted to make that clear.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor.
in multiple year vacancies, if you take any one title, like firefighter, police officer, this case the MEOs, where we have a large number of those employees, that junior position is almost always empty. You have retirements in the fire department every year, you have retirements in the police department every year, so that entry level, the first one on the chart, is always open. But it doesn't mean we're not trying to fill that, and it's not part of the overall staffing of the departments. So I think it kind of mischaracterizes it if we say they're open for multiple years. You have to look at just the hiring process and the reality of life. People spend their career here, they retire or move on to other things. But those positions then end up, so you'll always look at it, and there's gonna be an opening in the police department, there's gonna be an opening in the fire department, there'll be an opening for an MEO. Doesn't mean that we don't wanna do it, but that's the reality. In the whole, talk about the going halfway, are you talking about also in the garbage fee?
But I would say, based on Mr. Palomini's statement, I think we've done a successful effort at funding positions with the intent to bring those into the workforce really well. But I would love your recommendation. I don't know what organization would successfully continue to fund positions without adjusting their recruitment efforts.
That's not the budget, that's human resources. So if you wanna talk about that, that's a separate case. I don't have any issue discussing that, but now is the budget. You're the guys that came to the table with demands. Nobody else. So if you wanna start from there, then we can go from there. But the human resources is the one with the recruiting, not us. And I understand your point. That can be a discussion at a committee meeting. But right now, it's the budget.
But I would say we just heard from a department chair that says there's no interest in addressing that job announcement. And if I heard it correctly, because there's an ask in the Parks Department, doesn't mean even if you hired, that ask would be fulfilled if the need was greater in waste. So then my response is, if we just need personnel, why are we specifying? And let's start with what we have.
All you're doing is creating a structural deficit. That's all you're doing. Period.
I mean, yeah, I just
And
want to
just,
clarify that
if I
we're,
could
oh, go ahead.
address the
Sure.
chair, I told them to post those by department. The reality is when they get hired, the need may be different. But so I'm saying that I've tried to do that, hasn't happened. I'll take care of that. I'm not sure it's gonna get the results that people say it will.
But it's a
But I
conscientious
will
effort.
have those announcements modified,
Specifically, Mayor?
yes.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Ferrari?
I think if you specify this, Paul, tell me if I'm wrong, if you specify, you say you are a Parks MEOM, they don't have to go to garbage if you need them, correct?
If that's what you want, then I don't know what you want to do with garbage when people aren't there.
Mr. Coleman?
Thank you. To piggyback off what Mr. LaFawn said, a lot of this is geared by our collective bargaining agreement, which talks about the needs that Mr. LaFawn may see at a given point in time. And there's flexibility built into that for Mr. LaFawn to assign somebody to fulfill the need based on the title of the position. So it's not, when we're filling an MEOM position, there's no MEOM parks, right, in the civil service world, it's just the position. We have to assign it to a particular department. And then within that, there's flexibility within the CBA, and the union's aware of that, for Mr. LaFawn to be able to assign based on the need, and there's an order that he follows for that based on seniority.
My response is, I don't see us having the luxury of being particular right now because we just need the workforce. Did you have your?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we didn't come to the table with our demands, we came to the table with our suggestions for the budget, which you have done as well in the past. So it's not like the discussion around the budget has always been exactly what the mayor presented. To my knowledge, I don't recall it being ever exactly the budget that came to this table. So it's not about demands, but it is looking at the budget overall and coming with recommendations to the budget, which most of us have done before, even up till last year. So I just want to be clear that it's not demanding, it certainly is recommendations and trying to get to a certain place. And so that's what we should be doing to work together, and I'm sorry that some people feel that it's demands as opposed to recommendations. And concessions on when there is, some council members says, I absolutely cannot get there. It's like, okay, we can meet you halfway. So, this is where we are today, and as we left the table last night, we thought we were closer than we are today. We see that things have changed. I'm not sure.
Oh, Ms. Patrick.
I'd like to know, I mean, looking at the revenue, a huge portion of our revenue is in those fees. So I don't really see how I mean, obviously we have the casino, that's great. That looks pretty steady, but I mean, I don't really know how else we could bring in revenue to the city except through the fees. I think, and I agree that I don't think any of us want to add to the burden of our residents, but, again, I think that had we done it last year, we might have been in a different spot, but again, they're not, it's, I don't know, I think Anthony said that last night, but looking at this, I just don't know how else we would bring in more revenue. We're doing well with the property management sales and we continue to increase that every year, but I was wondering what other people felt about what their ideas were for increasing the revenue, if not those fees.
And for the sake of repeating it again, I'm not against fee increases. That is something that is naturally going to happen just based off the investments that the city has made. What I'm against doing as a first step is blanketly stamping our current staffing model without identifying ways to either improve our recruitment efforts or truly ask the question of, are we able to fill this ever? And if that question is not answered with an amount of certainty, I think passing that tax increase on to residents, I think that that's not an appropriate way to budget.
So I need to ask some questions. First of all, we discussed that we were taking A 3412, which is firefighters, and A 3120 and A 3122 off the table. So are people open to looking at other positions, or if that's an absolute no, then, in terms of not filling the vacancies and trying to get to the number that we needed? So that's my question.
Mr. Farley?
So I think that I'm definitely open to that. And I think that what we have to be really our approach to this, it's not a gotcha moment. This doesn't have to be oh, you didn't do a good job in getting people. I don't think for a second that Mr. Levon is out saying, oh, qualified guys and men and women don't come here. I don't think that's what he's doing. He's actually, I'm very much sure that he is out trying to get qualified people to help maintain the service of cities. The job market is what it is. It is a changing job market. So a lot of this conversation is not about necessarily laying it on the feet of someone around their inability of effective recruitment, but it is recognizing the market that we're in. And so then it's like, well, if we're unable to do that with our resources, what are some of the other things we do and where can we better use this money? And I think if we approach it from that, to the mayor's point, and I appreciate his flexibility to say, hey, look, if that's what we're talking about, let's identify some of those positions and then let's see if that's a feasible way of doing things. I'm just gonna say that I think that we get where we start to dig our heels in, and if what's happening right now isn't working, then it does, compel us to have a certain level of scrutiny. And it's not about who did what or didn't do what. It's about relying on each other to be innovative to help along the process. And I think if we use that lens, we'll be much better off. If not, we're just gonna be sitting here twiddling our thumbs. Let's be honest about that.
Well, as the finance chair for today, I believe we are yet again at an impasse. And I know that we are frustrated with the prolonged nature of this budget season. I guarantee you, I would much rather be at home looking at my daughters, but this is what the job is. To digest your new position, or I guess your current position, I need time to evaluate. I cannot do that right on the fly. I cannot do that right at this moment. That is a stark difference, Mr. Toro.
So we have heard from department heads, Mr. LaFawn, thank you. I'd like to hear about the rest of the, from the rest of the department heads here this evening to explain their need of what they put in the budget and how they need it to go forward as the mayor presented it. So I would like to hear that at least tonight before, so you can digest that a little bit more, we all can.
Well, the other two department heads, I thought the police chief was here. Oh, there it is. You wanna hear from them again, because we did hear from them before, and as I said.
No, I'd like to hear from them again
You wanna
now.
hear from
There
them
was
again?
a little confusion last night, at last night's meeting about wiggle room, and I would just like that clarified a little bit, so, thank you.
Chief Marino?
Oh, Marina.
Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to be perfectly clear, my position has not wavered from the beginning. I tried to make it as clear as possible through numerous conversations with every member of the council, through emails, through text messages. I'm not sure if I could be any clearer. We spoke about the overtime ad nauseum. It is what it is. It is contractual. Put in 250,000 that line, put in 1.5 million that line. Whatever that line is at the end of the year, that's what it's gonna be. There's no way around that. Our issues are vacancies. We have tried continually to hire, and we continue. I appreciate Mr. Williams' comment of how we're trying to be innovative. And we have a plan for 2024 to hire up to 14 people, I believe. And that is based on 6 positions we put in the budget, but also knowing that there may be some savings due to retirements. I could have put in there 14 positions, and that line would have been astronomical, and we would have walked out the door. I'm trying to be a good steward. The fire department, we're trying to be good stewards of our money. So we see that ability to take those savings and apply it to further hires. If we do not hire those people, we are in a world of hurt. This problem will continue and it will multiply to the point where we just won't have the people. So I'm probably repeating myself because I haven't wavered. I don't know what wiggle room means. I'm not wiggling. There is no wiggle room. What I've said from the beginning is what I say today. The overtime is the overtime. The vacancies are there. They will continue. We're trying to take money from potential, I don't want to call it savings, but funds that are there and use it to hire. It's complicated. The assistant chief, myself, staff, we look at it, we pull our hair out. I'm successful at that. It is a very tough thing to do. We're on track, I think we can do it, but if that money's gone, I throw my hands up on what to do after that.
So I appreciate your comments, Chief. I would like to direct the council to the in-service training, which is A3411, 406 in our budgets. The additional education you're talking about is highlighted in respect to sending more EMTs to school.
Correct.
And that's currently where that,
Carl, what page are you on?
page 27.
Thank you.
The 2023 adopted budget was $13,000, and based on your comments previously, each student is roughly $6,000 plus fees, which substantiates your increase to $45,000. Still correct me?
Without having my notes in front of me, because I always like to just give you perfect, transparent answers.
Understood. So based on your desire to train more students, you identified using some funds in other lines to essentially do this, send more students to school with in-service training.
Correct.
I would say from my perspective, digesting this, that would have been clearly stated if that number was increased to reflect your ask. But you're saying you're kind of waiting to leverage some other positions as they, am I still on board?
I'm with you, go ahead.
Right. Based on how I interpreted your budget, from my perspective, that's your investment in education.
Right, but depending on the number we actually settle on, if it's 9 EMTs, that figure you mentioned is just to send them to paramedic school.
Right.
That doesn't include the fire academy. And like I said, the way we approached it was knowing or hoping that there was going to be some funds from retirements. And that money moving around, that has been done in the past. So using, the budget is not what we want. Because if we wanted, I had conversations, I wanted a couple things. And it was perfectly clear, you're not getting what you want, buddy. So it's what we need. And I can stand here honestly and tell you that this is what we need. Now, if you think we should have highlighted that number clearer in retrospect, maybe. But knowing that we have this opportunity from people retiring, that we will have some available funds. So that is what we've been banking on. Every time I hear, I think you've gone away from it, which I appreciate it, but every time I hear, we'll just take those quote-unquote savings, apply it to overtime, to be honest with you, I get a major pit in my stomach. Because that knocks out our hiring plan. And I'm more than willing to sit down with all of you to show you all the details on how we're gonna try to accomplish it and bring some Advil, because you're gonna need it.
But I think one of the word I'd like to highlight is if, and I know you're going to make a conscientious effort to bring those more students in, correct, but we just heard an account of how difficult these expectations are to get more staff into these positions. So are you able to definitively say that number of new students will be at 9?
If I could be 100% on anything, I wouldn't be here, I'd be playing aloud. I think we can get to where we want to be. We're working out the civil services, the mayor's kind of highlighted that process. That's not an easy process. We've gone through the list. Our hiring process takes anywhere from 5 to 6 months. We've started it now. I think we can get to 9 EMTs, and I'm hoping for 4 paramedics. That's the only one that could vary a little bit. 5, maybe, I doubt it. 3, probably, I'm shooting in the middle for 4. We have an opportunity this year, and it's a one-time only opportunity, to have 2 different paramedic classes. The traditional class that starts in August, and there is another class that starts in February due to another fire department that just hired a whole bunch of people. They started at 21, they're down to 17 now, or 16, and they're sending them to a class of all their own. So being that they went from 21 to 16, there's some opportunity for us to get some people in there. So because of that, we're willing to pivot. Normally we send you to the fire academy, then paramedic school. For 5, we're willing to go paramedic school first, and then the academy. That presents some challenges, which we've got to be dead on the people that we hire. We've got to be as certain as possible that they can go through the rigors. This is no cakewalk. Paramedic school is extremely difficult, and the academy is very similar to boot camp. There's no guarantees of anything.
That's all I'm highlighting, these are opportunities, not guarantees. So I think that is where
We're gonna take our best shot. It's not, we're just closing our eyes and throwing jobs and picking people.
and then Chief,
We're bringing them through the rigors to make
it's
sure we
truly
get
worth-
the right people.
it's truly worth noting that our fire department is second to none, as the mayor consistently says, for a reason, and that is due to the quality of paramedics and firefighters that exist. So that is something that is non-debatable.
I appreciate your comments, and that goes to the men and women that we put on the street every day. They are quality people. They face a lot of things that are unmentionable, and they show up and they're there every day and they're working hard. I stand here proud of them, and I hope that every member of this council is proud of them also.
I think just my position is, as I collectively assess the opportunities that exist throughout this budget, that is where I stand right here. But I thank you for your comments.
Hopefully I'm clear, I try to be clear.
I think pretty clear.
Thank you.
And Chief Clifford.
I apologize for my appearance. I'm going over to the Schenectady Women Awards Influencing Change meeting later, so I do have to leave right after this, so. I'm not sure exactly what the question is that you want me to respond to.
Just your, the positions open. Oh, let me just find in here. So you have a position for, let me find them, Chief.
Yeah.
I think a help desk specialist, is that you? IPS, no, all right, IPS 3 and 12 vacant control officers as well as a dog control officer. So I just want to know, keeping those positions open and that those finances there, do you need all those positions?
The IPS 3 job is currently filled right now. That job is assisting us with our control finder rollout. So that job is filled right now. The open control officers class is actually up to 13 now. I just got word today that our list through civil service will be available next week. So we're already gearing up and canvassing that.
Nice.
I highly doubt we'll be able to take on 13 new officers. We're gonna try to figure out what a manageable number is, but we do have a new list, so we're hopeful that we'll be able to get as many officers as we can. Animal control officer, that's a work in progress. If anybody knows anybody, we really need a second one. Our current animal control officer is doing a great job, but it would be good to have one on another shift. It is a job that's important. And,
And as far as your overtime, that's specifically what you need to carry out.
It's consistent with years past that we've spent. And, you know, I pointed out to a couple people that I've spoken to that it's remained consistent for the most part, even though we've gotten raises over the last few years. So I think overall, we've actually spent less overtime hours over the year, but nevertheless, the money stays the same. It's right where we are until we become fully staffed, which we never really become fully staffed, as the mayor pointed out earlier, but we continuously try to, and that's why we need it.
So Chief, appreciate the information, and as you said, yes, the overtime budget is you explained why, but it has gone up every year consistently, so. So with that, of course, we hear from the public, and I have to always bring to the table the concern. Given the amount of overtime that's being asked, and let's say we get to that, how can we expect an increase in response time? Because that is one of the reasons you say that overtime is needed, but then on the other, but I'm also hearing from you as well, as well as the public, that we're seeing calls really stacked up. So I was just wondering how that coincides and how we're, given the overtime budget requested, you're going to be able to meet that.
These are things that we're working on. That's one of the reasons that we're working with TransFinder to develop control finders so our officers have a better idea of calls waiting. We're working on other technologies that can help us with that. I mean, but at the end of the day, you know, we don't work in a vacuum. We handled 75,000 calls last year, it's 200 calls a day, if you do the math in your head. And we're probably gonna exceed that number this year. I think year to date, when I asked over a month ago, we were over 60,000 calls. So we handle a lot of calls, as more calls come in, as technology increases the ability for people to call us, they're doing it. And, and we have to respond to certain calls. And, as the calls go up, the need for officers goes up. We don't have those officers to send, so that's why people wait. The other thing is that, our Unified Communication Center does a great job over there. But they have staffing issues themselves, so sometimes people waiting on the line is not indicative of what we're doing at the police department, but their operations over there and their limited staffing that they also have. We're in constant communication with them. They're very responsive to us. We recognize their challenges, so I'm not laying blame on them, but it's just another factor to take into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any other questions, Mr. Toro, or points to clarify? Thank you.
I would like to hear, you say meet you halfway. What's your plans to address the structural deficits that are in this plan?
What plan are you referring to?
We'll just go with the 50% one, the fees that are 50%, because those are the latest papers. Because it's confusing with all of them.
That's true.
Are you talking about the water and sewer? The 50, or which 50%?
The last plan that this group had put on the table was a 50% fee for
water and sewer.
Water and sewer. But inherent in that, as well as the other aspects of the budget, are structural deficits. How do you plan to address those?
Right now, we're trying to fill that budget gap, which we came up with yesterday, 777,000. And going forward, I know that we're gonna have to continue looking at the budget, Mr. Colony. So right now, we're trying to not only increase the water and sewer 50%. We are definitely looking at taking some of the money from the reserves. We already discussed that. And by removing some of the positions that we are not currently filled or have not been filled consistently, getting to that number so that we can pass this budget. So, and additionally, from my perspective, that quarterly, we should be looking at what our spending looks like. What we ultimately do is at the end of the year, we sit around this table and have this discussion. So part of it is, as we go through next year, that we continue to look at it and see where we are, what we do differently, and how we can increase our revenue. I have one thought that is not something that the mayor is part of, but it's something that, I would be discussing with the individuals who do that, and see, that we could have increased revenue there.
But that doesn't answer, I'm very specific, because that's you all want to know what my thing is? My thing's a structural deficit. So how do you plan on addressing those?
I just, for sake of having a civil conversation, you're saying like that you all put together, or you all are bringing, I'm not sure exactly who you all is, council members, and I speak for myself, are clearly capable of independent thought, and I think that I just would ask for you to be a little more specific, or just talk to whatever council members you're addressing, because
I would say it would be Mr. Mudavan, Mr. Williams, and Ms. Porterfield seem to have come with that plan. That's where I'm coming with the you all. Now, I may be incorrect in that, but that's the way it's been projected.
Okay, so my only suggestion would just be to be a little more specific, because I don't want it, that might not accurately represent the process that's happening here. And I think that can put us back into a place where we're trying to move out of. Thank you.
So do you want to detail what you mean by the structural deficit?
Yeah, your taking away 50% of the fees, so you're inherently creating a deficit in the water and sewage. Any changes you make into the budget in terms of positions is a one-time position to reduce the fees, and then you now have that deficit built in. And you're also creating a situation where if you do hire, then you also have that built in as a deficit. So we're looking at 7.4, let's just say it for giggles, it's 3.5 million. You build in these deficits, you're looking at roughly 5.5 million. How are you gonna address that?
Well, first of all, the mayor said that deficit is not coming next year, his word is not mine. And in terms of removing the positions, Mr. Palomini, we haven't filled them for years, we've said that. So that's, I don't think that point can be argued or if it even needs to be discussed any further.
Sure it is, because if you have $5 million worth of positions that don't get filled, and we go through the season and we end up with either a deficit or let's say we had a $2.5 million surplus a couple years ago. We had $5 million worth of positions. If we had filled all those 5 million positions, we would have had a $2.5 million deficit.
Mm-hmm.
That's a deficit situation.
Yes, but first of all,
And if you take those away, then you have that situation.
well, it's not that many vacancies, first of all, that we're talking about.
But it's
500
3 million, it's probably 3 million.
I don't know if it's 3 million because they haven't, we asked for the number, we have the number here, except we have 2.5 in vacancies. We said that we're not going to, we're looking at keeping the police and fire in there, so that significantly reduces that number.
You reduce the fire, fire and patrol officers, you're looking at approximately 1.4 million.
My numbers are pretty solid.
Is that,
I was just talking to Derek, my numbers are pretty close.
So I can say for myself specifically, I think I've been clear on my position with vacancies. I think it is imperative that we adjust how we hire and recruit naturally. I think the way that our budget that has been previously submitted, if you have unfilled positions, those funds return to the fund balance, is that correct? I feel until the city can put forth a concerted effort to hire into these vacancies, I think it is beneficial for the city residents to reap some of the benefits of that. Now, after hearing from our finance department, that benefit comes at a cost, which potentially could put in jeopardy our bond rating. Is that so correct?
That's right.
Which is where my position then shifted, because I do not want to completely undermine Mayor McCarthy's efforts to manage the city appropriately, and that is where my 50% came from. However, if we get to a standpoint where we can accurately evaluate and truly say that there are no other concessions that we can make to how we redefine these roles to increase our staffing, then that number is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. And then we need to then take a hard look at what those fees have to reflect. But until we do that, I've identified that those the fund balance should be used in that manner.
Well, I'll ask again, how do you plan to address the structural deficits?
so you're stating that if we don't increase the water fees, then we're gonna have a structural deficit, and then next year, since they continue to go up, we're gonna be in the same position, so continually every year, we'll not only, we'll increase the fees or actually taxes, on the taxpayers is what you're saying.
You will be in a worse position
Definitely.
next year and the years after because it's exponential impact.
I totally
And
agree.
all you're gonna end up doing is creating a situation where taxes and fees will have to go up so much
I agree.
that this increase will look small.
I completely agree with you. There's no way, I mean, I really have spent so much time, and I really think that that is what's gonna happen, that next year we would have to have a tax increase that would really hurt our residents. And I think, I mean, again, I've been here, this is my fourth budget or my third budget, must be my fourth budget. But I mean, you all before me had done a nice job too. I mean, the thing has been either level or going down slightly for at least 6 years, maybe 7, on the taxes. But next year, it'd be huge, right? I mean, do you agree with that?
Next year, the year after, it's an exponential impact.
Ms. Farr.
I just, like to address Paul Lafine. Paul, before last year, we did a first raise of water and sewer. How many years did we not raise water and sewer?
I think it was at least 3 or 4 years. We had
4 years.
Then we had one, and then you go back, I think it was 3 years that we didn't have any, where cost of living goes up every year, we know that CPI. And we've tried to do our best to hold rates down as much as we can. It comes to a point now where, some things have, created an issue where we need to raise our rates. A $700,000 debt service has to be repaid for the next 30 years. If you take it out of your reserves, it's still there next year. What do you do? We have some of the best water around, we have a great supply of water, we run a great wastewater treatment plant. We all know infrastructure is a costly subject, it's kind of being repaired. And we bear those costs, and the way to get that money either recouped through borrowing, it's a debt service we pay back, or emergency repairs come out of reserve funds, which we know we had. We had big repairs over the past years. A water main break that broke over 890 right behind the school. A few years back, Tupman Avenue cost well over $1 million to repair.
How much did the chemicals and sludge hauling increase?
Sludge hauling has gone up considerably. It was just under $100, now it's $112, went up to $212. Now we did a new RFP and get it down to $155. We do roughly 10,500 tons a year of sludge, and $155 a ton. It's a lot of money.
50% increase, right?
Chemicals have gone off considerably. These are uncontrollable costs that we deal with. It's energy costs have gone up. Everything has gone up in the operations of the wastewater treatment plant, the sewer division, or the water treatment plant. And at the same time, we have to constantly be looking at making upgrades because, again, we're planning for the future. We want that water supply. We want the resiliency of being able to turn our faucets on and have water every day. So those plans are always there. We just did the wells. We're doing fluoridation now. In the final phase, we do the well houses and all the equipment. That's to ensure that we have a supply of water. And on the wastewater side, to treat everything prior to going into the Mohawk River, where downstream users like Latham are pulling water out for drinking water. We're fortunate enough to have the aquifer. Our costs would be considerably higher if we didn't have an aquifer. We had to pull water out of the river. We'd be treating water. So we're fortunate in some ways, but again, our costs go up every year. And to slide this to our taxpayers, nobody wants to, like you said, nobody wants to raise rates, but it's the cost of doing business. Somebody has to pay for it.
But then, most importantly, someone has to do the job to make sure that those systems are still operational. And what we've seen in this budget are consistent increases to our fees for services and also positions. So I think that's where the struggle truly is.
You keep going after positions, but these are the positions we need. I hear you say that they've been there for years. There will always be open positions. People come, people go. They retire, they're terminated, they leave for other positions. There will always be open positions. We do our best to fill them. And we have agreements in place with the bargaining unit that has an opportunity for people to come in and grow. And whether they're in the parks or the streets, they're MEOs, they all work together. They have the same qualifications with regards to civil service. It's the same job title, it's the same job description. biggest requirement is the CDL license. Without a CDL license, I can't put anybody in a truck to drive it.
So I think hearing from Ms. Patrick and then in similar manner, Mr. Toro and Mr. Palomini, staunch stances of standing behind the mayor's proposed budget, correct? So I'd
It's
say.
not what I said.
I think.
I'm willing to make
Seems
some
different.
cuts.
He's-
I want my question answered about the structural deficits. I have yet to get an answer on that. I'm willing to address some cuts here or there, but I've not gotten an answer to my question. You guys ask questions all the time. You know, that's an important one. How are we gonna deal with the structural deficits? Because it's only gonna cause the problem to be much more worse in a year, 2, 3 years down the road.
I would say before I like this, I would say part of it is considering your stance with a cautious optimism, because if I remember correctly, that was your previous narrative last year, and the city's it's not on fire. And I think the language in which you used, which was very insightful, or I guess very incendiary, I think was how I was presented with my first budget of, if you do not approve 100% of what the mayor is saying, or if you do not have this lines in order, you are running the city into a brick wall. And although we are at an impasse yet again, I don't think that's where we currently are. I think we're more or less trying to understand how do we marginally increase where we're not having to jump more steps next year.
Because the fact is, the money's gotta come from somewhere, it's gonna come from the fund balance. That fund balance goes down significantly, gets below $6 million, the bond rating goes down, costs go up even further. Coupled incidents and the reserves are gone and the city's bankrupt. That's not hyperbole, that's reality. Am I wrong, Mr. Ferrari?
So I think the question then would be, you said that you would support some cuts. What areas would you support those in?
I made those last night with the clerk's office. I think the council's salary increase as well as the benefits. Those are some starters. You know, but other areas, I mean, code enforcement is a revenue line. Why would we cut those individuals? Some of these, I think, are grant positions. Some of them are just plain needed. So, you know, I'm willing to listen, but I put out some suggestions and.
So that's where I think where the productive conversation can happen. So you were saying, the position in the clerk's office and the increase for the council is where else? Because I know that's pretty, on the scale of what we're talking about, that's pretty.
Well, we're not gonna, in my view, there's no way to get to 777.
Well, that's,
Okay,
can I just, oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, just jump right in.
Well, I just do want to say
Not
that
that you-
that is part of what happened to me this afternoon. I must say that, I mean, thinking about last night in particular, I mean, I just felt like we were going over the same lines over and over and over again. And when you look at the money, it just was minuscule in terms of some of the, so that's where I just felt like we were spinning our wheels. So that's really what happened to me this afternoon as I was redigesting everything that we discussed. But I'm no, you know, I mean, I think we'd have to have like huge chunks, you know? We'd have to look for huge chunks of funding here.
So if we're taking out so in terms of you saying it's minuscule, what they provided from us for the finance department is all the vacant positions, we're taking out fire and police. So, it's been said that there's 1.4 million, so that's not really minuscule if it was trying to get to 777,000. And to Mr. Palomini's point, your recommendations in terms of the council, there was, the raise was agreed on, but there was a council member who was very clear about the
Me.
about the insurance.
That's fine, that's a discussion.
So, yeah, and also, I'll speak up about the clerk's office. When we think about the clerk's office, we only think about the clerk sitting here doing the work for the council. However, I've been in there, and the clerk's office does a lot of work and serves the public, and I would say very well. I would just say that I've had people who have complimented the people, the offices, the clerk's office, as well as other offices where they have to interact with the public. So I think that we have public-facing offices that are doing a great job, that we don't lessen their ability to do the job. And Ms. Mike, who stated last night that there's additional duties that had been assigned to her office. So, and that which brings in more revenue. Thank you for telling me that. So,
But the revenue line has been flat.
It's going to be bringing in more because we're gonna be putting things online.
Right, and if we do more of that, we can eliminate some of these positions
You
and
can't
get more
increase
efficient.
it. You're increasing workload.
Mrs. Burrow.
Thank you for everyone's opinion. So on the list that Mr. Ferrari and Eric provided to us today, what positions here that haven't been filled in a year, 2 years, a couple of years, whatever, are you recommending that we cut? All these other positions to get to the 770? I'm just curious.
well, it would need to be off because we're half of that.
I'm sorry.
It would not need to be.
Right, but, so minus police at 795, fire 384, animal control at 35.5. And I would like to keep all the MEOs at 671. I mean, what positions are, I'm not looking to cut any position because I think the budget presented to us again is a good budget, but what are you recommending that we cut at this point? So maybe we can, think about a little something else.
But you made it quite imperative that you have no interest in thinking.
Well, okay, but I'm asking you, what positions are you willing to cut to get to that $770,000?
Right, but you're asking me to entertain a conversation that you've had no point in wanting to follow through.
So.
Excuse me, I'm not done yet. Thank you.
Well, I was.
Okay.
Everyone speak.
So what I was gonna suggest is that maybe if you look at the positions that are here, and then maybe if you can start to rate them yourself, like where there might be areas that you're willing to move on, and therefore we can have a conversation around that. But I think Mr. Williams' point, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, and how I understand what you're saying is that you're not interested in cutting, or because I don't think anyone wants to cut anything, right? So if you're not interested in entertaining the conversation, well then we will be kind of like what Ms. Patrick is saying, spinning over this. That was the only thing I was trying to interject.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Farley. Clerical aides, IPS 3, I mean, I'm in favor of keeping all these positions because obviously they wouldn't be on here unless they were needed to serve the public in an efficient manner, and that's really all I'm going to say right now.
Right, and in digesting this entire conversation, I honestly saw no value in continuing this thing because I know your position and it's clearly laid out, so.
But I'm just wondering what your position is. I mean, you have a whole group of individuals here who want to know if they're getting their positions cut. That was my only question is
Right, and
on the finance committee. I don't have a vote to get it out of
Right,
committee
but I also
anyway.
want it to be important to highlight, we're not cutting any positions that are currently filled, so your
Correct.
comment of.
I understand that totally,
And it's
yes.
that type of language though that the community latches onto, and then those phone calls that we're fielding are taking on a new narrative. The positions that we were previously evaluating were vacant.
Correct. Like I started my conversation with 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, that's how I started the conversation, but again.
But you said individuals who might be losing their jobs.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that at all.
And to Mr. Farley's point, we are spinning our wheels. There's suggestions made, nope, we gotta keep those positions, which is fine. I understand that perspective, but, some cuts are okay, other cuts are not. It's a dealer's choice here. So, I think you're absolutely correct.
Right, and that's why my stance was then hearing where people's positions are and how we pass a budget that we all can support and agree on.
But I'd still like my question answered about the structural deficits.
I know you keep using that term, but I don't, and you're saying like years down the road, and so we have to pass a budget 1 year, each year at a time. And so we're looking at passing this budget and increasing revenue. It's been said time and time again, it's been said in the police department, it's been said in code enforcement. It's been said in the clerk's office. So part of creating the budget is increasing revenue, but we never talk about that. So in terms of you keep continually saying that, you're believing that you're operating on the premise that our revenue will stay flat and there will be no more empty.
Even if it goes up a little, consistent, if they go hand in hand, because costs are gonna go up, even if the revenue goes up, you still have that gap. So it doesn't go away. And we're talking about, let's getting rid of fees because our residents have a burden, and yes, they have a burden, but you're just making it worse in 2 or 3 years. And that's just a matter of fact.
I believe the term you just used, as you said, we're saying, let's get rid of fees. I didn't hear that from anyone. I could just speak for myself. I didn't say, let's get rid of fees. I think it's important that we're using accurate language, so.
It is accurate. You're looking to get rid of some of the fees. Get rid of fees. That's 50%. If it's 1%, you're looking to get rid of fees. That's an accurate statement.
We're looking not to increase them.
And that's very different than getting rid of them.
Same thing.
It's not the same thing. So
And all you're doing is putting it down the road and making it worse.
we're not, and I don't think that it's just a question of semantics. I really don't think it's a question of semantics. I think one action is saying that we are looking to, or council members are saying, how do we not increase fees? And then there's a conversation of how do we not increase fees, and getting rid of fees would suggest that there's fees that we're trying to reduce and get rid of right now. And I don't think that conversation is, or that framing is accurate from my understanding right now.
Regardless, doesn't answer my question about the deficit.
It doesn't, it's mine either.
So at this point in time, are we entertaining, getting Ms. Patrick's position has changed, so, she's out of the room at the moment. But, are we entertaining, like, looking at reducing the fees for services, and truly Mr. Moody should be here for this discussion, because I know that's one of the items that he was bringing forward. To get to that number, are we, that's really the question. And if we can get this budget out of committee, can we get there tonight?
I just wanted to, as Derek said in the beginning, beginning of this conference, the 2024 budget for, what's it? Fees for services is 4% less than it was in 2023, so just want to let you know that right off the bat, before we start climbing.
4%, is that?
Is there in the general fund for all the departments, if you total everything out from the 2023 adopted budget to
4% less?
the proposed 2024 budget, we're looking at a 4% decrease.
But I can say to my comment, if you're truly looking for a response, at some point, our investments in technology need to start reaping benefits for our community. And if we are saying and hearing from our public services saying that not yet, we need more time, at some point, that question is going to need to be answered or met with, what is the value of our continued investments in such efforts?
Okay, but that still doesn't deal with the structural deficits. Next year, we're gonna have a payment
You're
for
talking about next year,
$500,000. We have to look at this. If we're looking to reduce the burden on taxpayers, which is what I've been hearing, then you have to look at the impact beyond the 2024 budget. Because the impact will be multiplied, and it will only be that much worse for residents. We have a $500,000 payment coming for the Axiom, which we agreed to. That's gotta be put into the budget. It's not yet. We have the contract coming up with the police department. That's a minimum of X amount of dollars. Don't want to do it publicly because, but it's substantial. And if we were to go with half fees, 3.4, was it $1.7 million deficit?
I'm sorry?
If we went with half fees, it would be a $1.7 million deficit.
1.2.
1.7.
Yeah, that was 1.2.
1.2, $500,000 at this point, doesn't really matter. So 1.2 million, that's several $1 million that we're not accounting for. And we have to address if we're really interested in making the burden not hard on our residents. And that's why the structural deficit is important.
So last year, with us not increasing fees to this rate, we ended up, you're saying that it's now 4% less?
No,
Fees for services.
Fee for service, okay.
yes, that's the water and sewer fees.
Right.
This is fees for services
Yeah.
from the various
Yeah,
departments.
that didn't make sense to me. I'm like, how did we end up with those projections?
Yeah. What am I doing? Right.
It seems like the question is again, how can I get closer to the demands of sticking to the mayor's proposed budget? So I know the word no one wants to hear is recess, and I don't even know if you'd entertain one, but I do not know.
I just want an answer. If I'm not gonna get one, that's fine, you can say, I don't have an answer, but I would like to know what the plan is for the structural deficit. I've yet to get an answer. And if the answer is, I don't have one, or whatever, that's fine, and we'll move on and we'll recess. But that's the 5th time I've asked the question, and I've yet to get an answer.
And I think that you're projecting and not, I don't know if you're necessarily projecting with actual numbers. We were sat at the same table last year and we had a similar conversation about how bad it was gonna be. And we're not the place that we said we're going to be. And again, we have to do a better job of looking and increasing our revenue, and that's on us. So we said it last year. I know
The only reason
next year.
we're doing okay is because we used 4.9 million or whatever it was in ARPA. This year we're using 6.6. Are my numbers horribly wrong from what I've said, Mr. Ferrari?
No.
But I would say the manner in which you delivered them were.
And I can say the same about yours, but if we're, all I'm asking is, if I'm not gonna get an answer, just say I won't get an answer, and we'll recess. That's fine, I'm okay with that.
Maybe I could suggest that maybe it's not the answer that you deem acceptable, because I know that the council president has addressed that.
No, she hasn't. With all due respect, she has not.
Okay, so I believe she did, maybe not to your satisfactory, and I can appreciate that. I just want to reiterate that there has been a bit of a thought exchange here, and from what I heard is that the council president has tried to address what you're describing as a built-in deficit, structural deficit.
There's yet to be an answer as how to close that gap.
Well, I guess the answer is not satisfactory to you, but again, I submit that you've said it similarly last year. You're saying it again this year, but you're not specifically saying where it is.
I have been specific, very specific with my numbers, you just haven't listened.
Yes, I have.
And Mr. Ferrari has said my numbers are pretty accurate.
So, and I have this, so I take exception to that. So, you know, those are my response to your, and I understand that you won't be at this table next year when we do this again. I appreciate your presence here now. And we will.
And heaven help the city.
I beg your pardon?
I said heaven help the city. So
I know.
if you want to recess, if I'm not going to get an answer, that's fine. We'll recess.
I would say your narrative is on brand, but Can I have a motion for recess? And now we need to discuss a date.
Well, it's not discussing the date. You've called for a special meeting. The special meeting bypasses the committee. You have a statutory obligation to adopt a budget by November 1st. And we don't have, of course, the big hand on the clock. Just a little hand. So what I would say is you've got to put a budget forward and vote on it. Whether you want to use mine as the baseline, and do line by line amendments or whatever, but you called for a special meeting and think you have an obligation to vote on a budget.
So my understanding from, Mr. Colvin is that if we, that our code does not speak to what happens if we don't pass the budget on November 1st. I know that we have to pass it by the end of the year, otherwise we don't have a budget. So if you could just bring some clarity to that, Mr. Colvin?
Our code does not provide for there's no provision within our charter, just within our charter, not the code, which says the time to pass the budget is by November 1, the end of November 1, the particular year. Our code does not provide for, or charter there does not provide for the what if question if you don't pass it on that particular day. There's no statutory provision in general municipal law, second class city law, general city law that applies to budgets for the cities. Generally, everything goes back to the charter.
Well, it's been a special meeting called for that bypasses the system, so what I'm suggesting is you use my budget as a baseline and then move to amend it from the floor.
And I'll make a motion to accept the mayor's budget.
But you gotta call the meeting to order.
I was gonna say,
Well,
are we
first
all
it
in
has
that, or just?
We
First,
haven't really recessed
No, wait,
because we
but
didn't
first
vote.
it has to pass out committee the budget, right?
No, not if we have a special meeting, that's
Special
what he
meeting
just said.
bypasses the committee.
Oh, sorry.
There's one item, or whatever item is delineated in the notice.
So
Okay.
we don't have to leave
I
finance?
don't believe I was given a copy of whatever notice was given to the council, so whatever's in that says
From
what
yesterday, I
you're
think.
gonna do tonight.
Oh, so there's, I thought the agendas were passed out.
Last night, right?
That's-
No, there's another agenda today.
Oh, I didn't
That's
get
the agenda, but it's the notice that's served on city council delineates what you're going to do.
But there's
I don't have everything.
the special
That was
meeting,
sent last week, you had it received, you received it by email, you also received it by, in person as well.
Yes, I just didn't bring mine with me.
I did receive it.
so the special meeting said they were gonna call for a, special meeting for the finance committee to pass the budget out of finance, and then, then the meeting would need to, thank you. Okay, it reads as follows. Tuesday, October 4th, and Wednesday, October 31st, and Wednesday, November 1st. If budget not passed on October 31st, it's a Schenectady City Council meeting to convene Finance Committee, followed by the special City Council meeting. That is to pass the budget. However, we did not pass the budget out of the Finance Committee.
You don't have to.
It's special.
It's a question whether or not you have to pass it out of the finance committee. The language in our code, section 28-3 says special meetings may be called at any time by any member of the council on 3 days' notice specifying the object of the meeting. The city clerk shall cause the written notice thereof specifying the object of the meeting to be served upon each member personally or to be delivered. At such special meeting, no business other than that named in the notice of the meeting shall be transacted except by unanimous consent. At the time fixed in the notice of special meeting, the city council shall convene. The president shall take the chair, and the following shall be the order of business. Roll call, reading of the notice of the meeting and proof of service, transaction of the business specified in notice, and adjournment.
So we would have to call a special meeting and we would need a budget to pass. So we need a budget out of finance is what I'm understanding.
Send it direct, Madam President.
It goes to the notice. I agree with the mayor that if a special meeting is being called for a particular item, a meeting of this, a special meeting of the city council, then it would bypass whatever is contained within the notice would bypass the committee. But it goes to the language in the notice.
So
Do you have to at least?
I'm going to
the
do that.
finance, or you don't even have to come out on
To convene
Yeah.
a meeting of council.
So are you recessing?
So motion to recess.
Motion.
Second. I second. All those in favor? Aye. You're recessed.
Call to order the special meeting of the city council for November 1st, 2023 to vote on the budget. I'd ask the clerk to do a roll call, please.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Present, the roll call for
Yes.
attendance. So,
Mr.
okay.
Farley? Mr. Patrick?
Here.
Mr. Toro?
Here.
Mr. Palomini?
Here.
Ms. Porterfield?
Present. Okay, the special meeting is to pass the 2024 operating budget and capital budget for the city of Schenectady. So, at this point in time, the only budget before us is the budget that the mayor has put forward. So, I would ask for a roll call on the item that's on the table.
Do we need a motion?
Need a motion to bring to the table?
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I recommend discussion first, since you're gonna do a roll call vote.
Yes, all right. Is there any discussion, is there any further discussion on this item? The time to make those last comments before we call the roll? Ms. Michael, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Williams?
No.
Mr. Farley?
No.
Ms. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. Toro?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Ms. Porterfield?
No. Motion fails. Ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. A move by Ms. Patrick, second by Mr. Farley. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Oh, sure, I'll come get on it. That was good. I did.
Our council can contact them. Our council can contact them.
I'm telling you.
I was like, oh, please don't sit down and speak. Probably your immune system is probably
You'll be something.
How's your mom doing? How's your mom?
Struggling, but all things considered, I guess she's doing all right. Thank you for coming to appreciate it.
Of course.
Nice to see you guys.
Try to make it. Bye, everybody.
No, oh, all right.
That's what she said.
Jeez.
November